thought I would do two little chats on how shame takes some of the things in our life and twists them. So let me explain what I mean. So, what I've seen over the years is that shame is one of the greatest negative results of complex trauma. It reshapes a person's identity so that they believe the reason they were neglected or abused is because it's their fault. They're not good enough. They're not lovable. They're not valuable. And so they go from this positive identity that I am lovable, I have inherent value, to I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough. And that colors all of life. But what you have to realize is that shame is actually a fear-based emotion comes out of that, which if people see the authentic me, they're going to reject me, neglect me, abuse me like I've experienced so far. And so I must hide the real me. I must not let people see what I think is the real me. Because if I do, then I will be rejected or abandoned or abused. And so the priority of shame is to hide. And that often is even to the person themselves. They don't even realize that they have this belief because they don't feel shame-like emotions, but they are operating off of this belief. And so there's an element of denial that goes with it, but there's also an element of compensation that I believe I'm less than, so I somehow have to make myself better than others to be okay with myself. And so there's two things that shame does to compensate, to try to fix shame, that I want to look at today. And so one of the things that it does is it takes all of the things it had to do to survive, the maladaptations, and deep down, it doesn't feel good about them, but that feeds shame. And so what it does is puts a positive spin on those maladaptations and presents them as a positive thing that they're proud of. The second thing that it does is it compares itself to others, but it'll always find an area where it can make itself feel that these qualities of me makes me better in that area with another person who has qualities different than me. And so they're always looking for points of comparison where they're going to come out on top. And so I want to develop those two over these two talks. So let me begin with this, putting a positive spin on maladaptations. So if you, just for a bunch of examples, if you think of a person who, as a child, anytime they showed emotions, they got punished. If they showed crying, fear, anger, they got punished. They got told they're too sensitive. So they had to suppress their emotions. They had to disconnect from their emotions. They had to escape to their brain and become a very logical, rational person. Those were maladaptations. Those were trying to survive tools. But now in adult life, they still do that. And so what do they do now? They go, my emotional suppression is actually a strength. So I numb my emotions. I don't feel emotions. I'm not emotional because I'm just a logical person, not those weak emotional type people. So they've framed it to make it look like emotions are weakness, analytical logical is strength. So they're analytical logical, so that makes them better than emotional people. The other thing that happened in childhood is if they presented their needs and asked for help, they got made to feel like they were a burden, that they were too much. And so they've grown up with this fear of being a burden because shame never wants to be a burden. Then people will reject me even more. And so now they never ask for help. They just try to figure everything out on their own, but they got to put a positive spin on it. So what do? Oh, I'm low maintenance. I am self-sufficient. Really, it's a maladaptation, a survival necessity that's actually hindering them today, never being able to ask for help. But they have to, because of shame, put a positive spin on it. I'm low maintenance, or I'm self-sufficient. Or another thing that happens to a child is they try to connect. They try to connect with mom, with dad, with siblings. They keep getting hurt. They keep getting rejected. They don't experience secure attachment. They get insecure attachment types, so now they're avoidant or anxious or ambivalent attachment styles. And so now, let's say an avoidant person, they just isolate a lot. And so how do they put a spin on that? Oh, I don't need people. People they just weigh you down. I'm actually stronger because I don't need people. That's the spin they put on it. Or some people, because of their complex trauma, they regularly had to go to freeze or dissociation because they couldn't fight or flight. So they just shut down. Now they're cool under pressure. Now when stuff gets really tough, something in them, they just shut down and they're able to continue on. Instead of saying, wow, this is a maladaptation that actually is hurting me and others, they go, oh, I stay calm under pressure. That is my strength. So what you can see here is that shame is taking all of the things that were maladaptations that let me survive but now are hurting me, but is trying to now say this is a strength. Therefore, I never need to look at it. Therefore, I never need to explore why I do it and challenge it. Now I can just hang on to it, and I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care if people are offended. And that's the stance that they take. You think of other children who've grown up where they have all kinds of anger because of injustice, because of many losses that they weren't allowed to grieve, because of being disrespected all the time, because of their needs not being met all the time. And so they've had to stuff down their anger. And so how do they frame that now? Oh, I forgive easily. No, they stuff. That's what they do, but they spin it to say, I forgive easily. Or you think of a person who tried to be authentic and share and open up, but they got judged, they got laughed at, they got punished, they got pressure to conform to be something other than what they really are. And so now they don't share with anybody. They don't open up to anybody. But how do they frame that? Oh, I'm discreet. I don't air my dirty laundry with other people. That's not appropriate. They put that kind of spin on it. And so again, shame is afraid to be human because it's always led to rejection in the past. So it's suppressed all the parts of themselves that got judged or rejected and tried to put a positive spin on it. So let me take you to another maladaptation. So many children had to go to fawning as a way of survival. They had to become attuned to everybody else's needs. They had to people please, never say no, take care of other people's emotions, suppress their own needs, their own emotions. They had to be more attuned to what you think than to what I think. They had to be a chameleon and be whatever you want me to be. So now in adult life, they are a people pleaser. And they go, yeah, but I'm an empath. That's the spin they put on it. They don't set boundaries with people. Yeah, because I care about people's feelings. I care more than most people. They cling on people and are running over to help them because of their anxious attachment. And how do they spin it? Oh, I just care so much about people. So the very things they did to survive, the fawning where they had to basically murder a lot of their own soul and try to take care of others as a way to fill up their soul, now they just spin it in this way that I'm selfless. I'm a servant at heart. I'm an empath. I care so much for people. And then if they had to be a parent to their parents, and now they're over responsible in relationships and just take care of everybody. I'm just a responsible person, the one that's so reliable. If they had to become a workaholic and just go, go, go all the time, oh, I'm just so responsible. I hate lazy people. I hate people who are irresponsible. I'm not like that. And if they couldn't connect to people, so they connected to things, and they now take care of things so much that they treat things better than people, better than their relationships. And it's just their spin on it. I'm just so responsible. I take care of my things. So again, they're trying to not deal with the maladaptations, but put a positive spin on it and say that's the way I am. I don't need to deal with this, and put it in a positive thing. So a couple of things that I want you to notice before we go further. Do you realize that maladaptations take good traits, caring for people, but they take it from a healthy place to an unhealthy place? So what I'm talking about here is an empath. I'm not saying that they're a bad person. I am saying that an empath is a person who had to survive by caring for people more than themselves. They have great qualities, but they haven't learned to care for themselves as an equal. So there's a problem there. It's going to get in the way. But all of these are built on good qualities that had to be taken too far in order to survive. And so, yes, by saying I have the qualities of caring for people, it's fine to say that. But when you spin it to say this is now my virtue, this makes me better than you, this makes me great, without realizing there's a downside, an unhealthy side that I had to implement in order to survive, that's where the problem is. So ask yourself, if you took that trait away, so let's say I'm an empath or I'm a logical person, not an emotional person. Did you choose to be that way, or did you have to be that way to survive? Being that way, does it actually expand your life or shrink your life? So you're the logical person. In many ways, that shrinks your life because you don't feel, you don't explore all the parts of your humanness. You're just a walking brain. The empath, it shrinks your life in that you've had to give up you've had to become smaller yourself. And so what does it cost you, your needs, your voice? How does it show up in your body as pain? Could you stop being analytical or an empath? Would that cause panic? Would that cause guilt? Because all of your identity now is based on that. So understand that there's a difference between healthy empathy and compulsive attunement that many people then label themselves as empath. There's a difference between healthy generosity and self-abandonment. So healthy generosity does not equal self-abandonment. Healthy empathy does not mean compulsive attunement. Healthy calm does not mean emotional shutdown. So just be willing to start deconstructing some of your coping skills to see the healthy part and the unhealthy part. Let me go to a third maladaptation. So for many people growing up in complex trauma, their needs were not met. And so the only way that they could get their needs met is they had to become more controlling. They became control freaks in some cases, but being in control became a priority for them. That's how they stayed safe. That's how they got their needs met. And so every time they feel anxiety, they want to get back in control. That helps the anxiety to go away. And how do they frame that? How do they spin it? Oh, I am just very responsible. And then for some, that hyper control need begins to go into perfectionism, where I got to do everything perfectly. And they just say, oh, I just like things to be done right. That's how they spin it. For many, that need for control was because so much of their life has been chaos. It's been out of control. It's been living in the unknown. And so if they're in control, they can figure they're living in the known. And they just spin it like I'm organized. I like to plan ahead. Or for many, growing up in all of that chaos, out of control, they had to work hard to get to safety. They had to work hard to get organized and enough structure to be safe. And so now how do they spin that work hard, high achievement? I'm just a high achiever. I'm just a type A personality. And then for many in all of that chaos and disorganization, they were hypervigilant because they didn't know what to expect on any given day. It was unpredictable. How do they explain that now? How do they spin it? Oh, I'm just very detailed oriented. I like to know all the facts about everything that's happening and what's going to happen. And so again, they're taking their necessary survival tools and not separating the healthy from the unhealthy, but just saying it's all healthy. And that's a shame response. Then for many that come out of complex trauma, as a child, you couldn't resolve problems. So you would get injured in a relationship. There would be damage. There'd be a rupture to the relationship, but nobody ever repaired it. You would try to, but that would lead to a conflict that never got resolved. And so conflict was always shut down. You were punished for it. Conflict was always bad. It led to more pain and more problems. You became afraid of conflict. You became afraid of angry people. And so you just learned to conform. You just learned to be whatever you needed to be to avoid conflict. So how do you spin that now? Well, I'm just an easygoing person. I just hate conflict. I love to solve things easy. Oh, I'm just very diplomatic. I love diplomacy. I'm just an adaptable person. I just go with the flow. I'm great at seeing all sides of an argument and just kind of going with the one that leads to the greatest peace. Or I just great at keeping the peace. So you put a positive spin again on stuff without facing what the fear deep down is that you're running from. Then the next one is many people coming out of complex trauma suppress their emotions. Others have very dysregulated emotions. They get triggered emotionally and they go off. They go off with great intensity. And so now how do they spin that emotional dysregulation and intensity that comes with that? They go, I just feel things deeply. That's why I respond the way they do. Or I love hard. That's why I respond so intensely. Or I'm just a very passionate person. Or I'm just a very sensitive soul. Or I just speak the truth. That's what matters to me. I just got to speak the truth. So again, they're putting a spin that is saying it justifies everything I do, but really they're hiding, looking at it totally honestly. Then some went fight, flight didn't work, so they went to freeze dissociation. Some went to fawn, others went just to isolating. I'm going to be invisible. I'm going to go not have needs, not interact with people, not have friends, because it just leads to pain. So I will avoid relationships. I will avoid social settings. I will avoid intimacy. And so how do they spin that? Oh, I'm just introverted, or I prefer solitude. Oh, I just don't do small talk. Who needs people anyways? I'm really good at being self-sufficient. And then some people spin stuff with a spiritual or a moral spinning. So many people from complex trauma who are true victims, they end up just feeling so hopeless and helpless that they think they'll never have the tools or agency to make decisions. So they kind of learn a learned helplessness. And how do they spin that? Oh, I just surrender all the time. Or they never set boundaries with anybody. They never take responsibility to fix their problems. They go, I just trust God. I just trust the universe with everything. So they spin it so it sounds really virtuous, really spiritual, but really they're avoiding facing the problem. And then they may be full of anger and resentments and grief, but they've disconnected from that. And so how do they spin that? Oh, I've transcended my ego. Oh, I've just forgiven everybody. No, you haven't dealt with it. You're just trying to bypass it with this psychobabble terminology. Then somebody that stays in a very harmful, abusive relationship and they just put up with it instead of leaving, they go, oh, I just learned that love must be unconditional acceptance of the other person. Love doesn't set boundaries. And then people that are afraid of conflict, afraid of angry people, therefore are afraid to confront when somebody is hurting them, they go, oh, I just prefer grace and forgiveness. So there's that way of spinning things to avoid. So just to wrap this up, some of these you might relate to. I hope that you realize that the reason that you are spinning it, there's shame underneath, there's fear underneath, there's guilt underneath. There's a sense that if I change this and look at this, my identity that's been created by this is going to be challenged. I might feel unsafe. And so there's a lot of reasons in your subconscious for not looking at this honestly. But I hope that you begin to realize there is a distinction that needs to be made in these things from the healthy part of the maladaptive survival strategy to what became the unhealthy part. And the unhealthy part is what's hurting others today. I can deny it all I want, but it's not. But don't just focus on changing the externals. Heal the shame, because this is shame driving the spin job. Heal the shame so it doesn't need to hide behind all of these positive spins. Well, I hope that helps you. I hope it puts some words to maybe understanding some of the stuff that you've done even subconsciously in your life. If this was helpful, please like, subscribe, comment, share it with others. It means a lot to us. Thank you. See you next time.